Right, so we're building up this new S-Works tarmac. One of the first steps is to cut the steerer, the most nerve-wracking part of any job. Now obviously measure twice, cut once, and what I tend to do is, even though I normally ride without spacers, put a spacer in underneath for the first cut, first few rides, and see how you get on, gives you a bit of margin of error. And the other thing to bear in mind is that how large this part of the stem is, because this stem is actually quite short. So if you cut just for this stem and you end up changing stems to one which has a more normal, larger height here, you might find that your steerer is a little bit too low in the stem. So I'm going to cut a little bit higher here, put a 5mm spacer on top, just to give myself that bit extra margin. Yeah, so just had a little bit of a nightmare getting the carbon plug expander out of the fork. It wasn't me that put it in, so it was put in pretty hard. And the way these work is that this bolt goes down through the middle, screws into this wedge here and pulls the wedge up into the thin metal here, which expands this metal which grips on the inside of the steerer. So to get them out, you have to unscrew that bolt and it will rise up here, tap that bolt hard with a hammer, and then that knocks the wedge out the bottom, so the pressure is relieved. But in many cases, and this one is the case in point, the metal still is gripping so hard on the carbon, even though the wedge is no longer in it, that it doesn't want to come out. And what I tend to do is I tap with a plastic screwdriver all around here to try and free it up. You have to tap quite hard, and even that wouldn't free this one up. So I ended up putting the whole fork in the fridge, which contracts the metal, and then a few taps and it came out. Because what I need to do now is run the cable for the battery down the T-tube. It has to come around a shell in the bottom bracket to pop out of this little window down here. And it's quite a tricky little operation, but this is one thing you can do, is drop some thread down the tube, just let it dangle and collect around this area here. I've had to put the fork back in to block up any air exits, so this becomes airtight-ish up here. So the only way air can be drawn through is down here. So let's see if it works. And yep, as if by magic, we have a thread appearing here. So all we need to do now is to tie the cable on the top and put it through. Right, so now we need to just trim a little bit off the steerer. The method I use, which works pretty well, is a pipe cutter, nice and sharp. And although people will say don't use a pipe cutter on carbon, you're not actually, all I'm doing is scribing the cut line around here. I'm not actually cutting all the way through with it, so I'm just scribing a cut line which is just a tiny little bit deep, and then that provides you an excellent mark for when you're sawing, to make sure you don't go offline, and it keeps the saw in that channel as well. So that's what I'll be doing now.